You know that feeling, the specific click when you slap a cartridge into a top loader, the feel of that controller in your hand, that Saturday morning focus where your only goal was to beat the next level. For me, that wasn't just a childhood phase, it became a lifelong passion. And now, I'm the retro gaming boss. And if you've ever wondered about the guy behind the deep dives, well, you've come to the right place. So, who am I? Just some middle-aged guy who was lucky enough to grow up during the golden age of video games through the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. I was a classic latchkey kid in a small rural town in the West Coast, where the biggest excitement was usually the weather. After school, my mission was getting to the TV first before my brothers to fire up the console and escape into gaming worlds. I grew up in a lower-income family and we didn't have a lot, and that's exactly why those games meant everything. It wasn't about having the newest stuff. It was about the sense of exploration and adventure you could find in a single cartridge. They weren't just entertainment, they were my portal out of the boredom and conformity of that small town. This experience helped me appreciate every single detail of a game because I had to. I couldn't just rent a new one every week. I'd spend months with a single game, discovering every hidden corner, every secret warp zone, and every last pixel. I was the kid who read the game manual cover to cover in the car on the way home from the store, soaking in the details. I'd even draw my own maps for RPGs on graph paper. And this limitation, the need to squeeze every last drop of joy from a single cartridge, didn't feel like a disadvantage. It taught me to see the depth and artistry of these worlds. It forged the deep dive mentality that defines my channel today. So my journey toward becoming the retro gaming boss began with my first memory of playing video games in the early 80s on the Atari 2600. My older brother and I played endless rounds of Combat, Frogger, and Pitfall. Later on, we saved up and got a Tandy 1000 PC, and that opened up a whole new universe. I fell in love with the Sierra Quest games and getting hilariously killed in every possible way in the sarcastic sci-fi classic Space Quest. That led me to my first real RPG, The Bard's Tale. Yeah, the one I spent days painstakingly mapping its dungeons by hand on graph paper, which probably explains my penchant for spreadsheets and OCD in my real-world job working with technology today. From there, my tour of duty continued through the peak of the console wars. I was a Sega kid through and through, starting with my very own Master System, then graduated to the Genesis and what I feel is a hugely underrated, if imperfect, Sega CD. And while I loved sneaking in some play sessions on my kid brother's Super Nintendo sometimes, I always had a soft spot for the underdogs. Fast forward a number of years, and while in university, I was one of the maybe dozen or so people who bought an Atari Jaguar, and chose to get the Sega Saturn instead of a PlayStation. I later made a big investment by branching out on the N64, and the very last console I owned before the responsibilities and endless distractions of adulthood took over was the original Xbox. And then, for a long while, real life became the final boss. Work, family, career. The consoles went into the attic, and some were regrettably sold off to pay for university textbooks. Remember those? So how did I get back into it? And what led me to making YouTube videos about all these old games? Well, my interest for gaming led me into a career for technology, and like many of us, it was during COVID. Stuck inside, I started daydreaming about all those classic games I played as a kid to relieve the mind-numbing boredom and stress of working from home in a tedious corporate job. I started watching YouTube gaming channels and was blown away by the passion and knowledge out there. It reminded me of reading the gaming magazines from long ago, and that re-sparked the interest of talking about games with friends and sharing my hobby with others. This is the why behind my channel. I saw a lot of great content out there, but I wanted to create a space that went even deeper. A place for us, the people who don't just feel nostalgia, but a real curiosity. How did they actually make Alien vs. Predator on the Jaguar? What's the untold story behind a classic like Mario Kart 64? I wanted to blend a hard technical analysis with real-life personal stories about what it actually felt like playing these games back in their prime. It's what I call tech nostalgia, satisfying the tech-savvy analytical adult and the wide-eyed kid at the same time. And that, my friends, is the origin story of the Retro Gaming Boss. Now, you might have noticed I don't appear on camera. I get asked about that sometimes. The reasons are pretty simple. First and foremost, I want the focus to be entirely on the games. The pixel art, the 3D worlds, the box art. That's the star of the show, not my ugly face. Second, let's be real. This lets me record audio in my pajamas without worrying about a dress code. And if you've watched any of my videos, you'll know I'm not trying to become some kind of comedian or an online influencer, because in the end, it's not about me. It's about the games. And finally, a little mystery never hurt anybody. It lets the conversation be just about the games and our shared memories. Speaking of memories, you can't get to know a gamer without knowing their favorites. So let's do a quick lightning round for some Q&A. Alright, my top 5 retro games of all time are The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. This brought a beloved 2D RPG into the 3D world, and its emotional resonance has rarely been matched. I mean, I actually shed a tear watching that ending scene, I won't lie. Yeah, it's that good. Golden Axe is at the top of the pack for its great cooperative combat, iconic fantasy aesthetic, and letting you stomp those little green gnomes to get your potions back, bastards. Tomb Raider broke new ground by offering vast, explorable 3D worlds and introducing the iconic female protagonist of Lara Croft. This was a new high watermark that perfectly blended action, puzzle solving, and moments of quiet isolation and exploration. Doom, of course, defined the first-person shooter genre as we know it today, delivering intense action, cunning level design, and a revolutionary shareware model that spread it everywhere. Mortal Kombat forever changed the arcade fighting game landscape with its digitized graphics, iconic characters, and of course, the controversial fatalities that sparked a cultural firestorm. And I've just got to add a couple of honorable mentions here. Tempest 2000 is a psychedelic, sensory overload masterpiece that perfectly modernized the classic arcade formula with its pulsating music and explosive vector graphics. And finally, Smash TV. It's the ultimate twin-stick arcade shooter, perfectly capturing the chaotic, over-the-top spirit of a violent game show with its infamous catchphrase,
"Good luck! You'll need it!"
Yeah, I'll admit to my pile of shame. The retro games I started playing but never finished, but absolutely intend to. That includes the legendary Snatcher on the Sega CD. Shame on me, I know. Also, the not really very good Phantasy Star 3 on the Genesis. And the classic Secret of Mana on the Super Nintendo. This is a sacrilege, I hear you. Consider this my public commitment to finally cross those titles off my list. If you're new to retro gaming, welcome. My advice is simple. First, try and play the original version of the classics before going into their modern-day remakes. It lets you see the creativity and genius, and the limitations that shaped gaming's evolution. Second, dig for the lesser-known games. A game like The Bard's Tale from 1986 is a perfect example. Simple, challenging, and a foundational piece of RPG history that often gets overlooked. And most importantly, see these games through the lens of their own time. Judge them not by today's standards, but by their innovation, the impact, and what they meant to us back then. Okay, as for the debate about playing on emulation versus original hardware, I say, do what feels right for you and your wallet. Look, the goal is to play and enjoy and maybe recapture some of that feeling from back in the day, whatever that means to you and your situation. For me personally, I already paid for all those old systems and games with my hard-earned money decades ago, and at this point, I don't feel compelled to buy them all over again to have some massive gaming collection. Although, I think it's pretty impressive for those who do, and I have to admit I'm a bit jealous. Maybe someday I will, but for now, I'm content with playing most of my favorites on various forms of emulation. When I'm not deep diving into the chipsets and graphics from 30-year-old consoles, I'm just a working stiff, balancing an office job and family life. but it's that very balance between adult responsibilities and holding on to that piece of your youthful identity that makes this hobby and this community so special to me. Now before we go, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's watched my videos, liked and shared my content, and left those incredibly detailed comments. Thank you. Your feedback has been so helpful to me as an amateur creator while I've grown this channel throughout the year. I genuinely love hearing your stories about playing these classics. It brings everything full circle, back to that feeling of sharing a passion with friends. And I want to wish you all happy holidays and a fantastic end to the year. And rest assured, there's a ton of great new content in the works for the Retro Gaming Boss channel. Now I've shared my story. I want to hear about yours. Tell me in the comments below, what are your core gaming memories? The ones that locked in your love for this hobby. Let's get a massive thread of nostalgia going. If you enjoyed this peek into my background, then please hit that like button and subscribe for more feel-good retro gaming content. You know, it's tough competing against the established huge gaming channels out there, so your support means a lot and really helps YouTube to highlight my videos and help my channel to grow. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a date with a certain Super NES RPG I still need to finish. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you on the next one.